time like this where the members of the church take care of the business that's been left for the members of the church. I think most of you know the way that the Wesleyan Church leads or runs by now. This conference meets one time a year. This is the highest authority inside the church. In between these annual conferences, there's board meetings which you determine by your elections who sits on that board. So ultimately, it's this body, this congregation, that has full authority in the church. There's some things only you can do today. And one of the things that, one of the goals that I have for today is that we get those things done. The second goal that I have is that you get your questions answered. I don't want any of you to feel like if you have questions about what's happening or the way things are running, you can't raise them because it doesn't fit the protocol. I want you to feel free to stop or interrupt at any time and raise a question about anything, whether it's personal of me or of any of our staff, or whether it deals with the organization, with any of the reports, okay? Can I also add that if you look at the altar rail or the prayer, what do you call that again? The kneeler. I'm immensely proud of our people this morning for the way that our people brought their concerns and doubts to the front and had the courage to put them on the table. I wasn't sure of it, but I sensed in many cases it was hurt, taking the form of a question. But the trigger or the stasis of the whole thing was some hurt in the past. And for them to kind of step up and put that on the altar was just important for us to do. Before I call the meeting finally to order then, I also want to remind you that the mission of the church is to make more and better disciples who transform the community and resource the greater church. 2/3 of our mission is not about us. It's about the community and it's about the greater church. This is because so many of you are already embedded in institutions around the community that you have the power to lead, and that is unique to this church. And I feel we've not done our job until we've empowered you to transform the places where you work. And it's also because God has placed us in between two major Christian universities who send out students like the ones we prayed for this morning, and they go all over the country and even the world. And so we have a unique calling to the greater church to stamp these students with the convictions and the philosophy of College Church so that wherever they go, they carry those convictions with them. Okay? Normally we would set the conference bar. I'm not going to do that today. We try to separate those of you that are members from those of you that are not. Stay where you're seated. Just remember this. When it comes time to vote for the budget, you have to be a member to vote. Probably we'll take that just by an aye or nay vote unless we start to feel a division of the House. But otherwise, we'll just go by a voice vote. Would that be okay, or does someone object to that? Okay, now that you have the rules, let's go into a brief review. I think we've got a video here of what's happened in the last year and some of the things. And then right after that, Vicky's going to come up and give you more of a ministry update so you can kind of see the last year in review.
Every church has something they're uniquely called to do within their community. We've defined our call within our mission statement. We're called to make more and better disciples who transform the community and resource the church. You'll notice that our mission includes a lot that can't happen on a Sunday morning. When we gather at the table at College Church, there are things God placed within each person in our body that gets better because we're together, focused on growing towards the person of Christ. But so much work happens when we are sent into the community to practice living like Jesus in Grant County and beyond. That's a pretty broad mission. So year by year, we have to know, how are we doing at living that out?
So this past year, the board led us toward focus on two key areas. The first was Rise of the Laity, or as we've called it, the priesthood of all believers. We're deeply convinced that God wants to use the work and the relationships and the spaces that you and I touch between Sundays, helping us know and feed and lead and protect those God has entrusted to our care. We've seen that happen this past year through our shepherding initiative, as over 100 people gathered together to intentionally get better at shepherding, and through praying on offense, as Jeff Clark and others in our body have been convening groups that help us name specifically what we hope God will do for the people we're committed to live with. Our hope is that our church can be a space where every person, no matter their level of experience with doctrine, can go to learn practical theology. And so we've begun a 2-year interactive journey called Table Ed, where we gather around tables and talk through how theology meets our cultural moment. We launched 2 courses this year, both of which have had strong participation, and now other churches are asking how they can use these materials in their own discipleship work. Key lay people in our church have decided to open up a space called Holy Disagreement to talk through the hardest issues facing Christians today and talk about them head on with grace and openness and empathy. We're seeing lay people rise and splash, most recently through Passport to Jerusalem, where 90 volunteers served 562 people, almost doubling previous year's participation. And we're seeing this in JC Body Shop as the youth team has recruited more volunteers, expanded our internship program, and restarted a youth worship team, even as they also incorporate more volunteers of other generations.
The second area our board encouraged us to focus on was learning from the global church and becoming a community that strives to reflect both the diversity and the unity that we already find in our triune God. And even though we've just begun to scratch the surface on this, we're excited about the ways that God has already started this work in our congregation. We've worked with a scholar from our body who leads in the field of intercultural congregations to discover our strengths and also our needs for growth. We've intentionally introduced new songs to our church's canon that include a variety of other languages that are reflective of the heart languages that are found in this local congregation. Last October on World Communion Sunday, we hosted our first ever global potluck with over 100 people in attendance and at least a dozen different countries represented through various dishes. Last Advent, we participated in a service that brought together over 5 different congregations. There were multiple ethnicities represented, a variety of song styles, worship through dance, all unified in proclaiming the hope of Christ's incarnation. Within the last 2 years, we've taken trips to Sierra Leone and Mexico City, with another trip to Mexico City already scheduled, to witness God's activity and learn from our partners around the world. God has been so good to this congregation. And as we join in both gathered and sent worship, our hope is that this church reflects the values, the personality, and the work of God, not just within our church, but in our city and around the world.
Let's go, church. Let's. This is a celebrating time. So you guys can shout, you can clap. This is exciting because we're talking about what God is doing in and through the church. These are things that we're not just doing for God. We are doing this with God. We are joining God in what He is doing, not just here, but around the world. And you heard some things in the video, but I just want to give you just a few more. We're first going to talk about the tending team. And you probably think, what's the tending team? That's our pastoral care, that's connections, that's facilities, finance, and the ministry resourcing. And what we're celebrating with that team is that so many in our congregation are shepherding our people through visiting the shut-ins, those who are sick. And they do this through a variety of ways, through just visitation, like being present with people. That's what God calls us to do, to be present, to manifest Himself to others, devotions, card ministries, calls, phone calls, meals, treat bags, and so much more. We are celebrating what they are doing. We're also celebrating the hard work of our board of trustees who do so much in our facilities. And so much of this is unseen. You don't even know. You come up on Sunday morning. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Let's celebrate that. Because so many of these things that are done and you guys weren't even here, I'll come in and I might see someone like under a sink. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, this is dripping. We got to fix this. We want to celebrate what they do, especially during this season of transition that we've just been through. So we are so appreciative of them. The tending team is also celebrating 2 staff members in this last year, one new and one not so new. The one new is Patrick Riggs, our finance director. And the not so new is Emily Vermilia, our pastor of operations and development. Yes. All right, next we go to our cultivating team. Now that is worship arts, Splash, JCB, college ministry, and discipleship. Now, a lot of what the cultivating team has been working on and is celebrating was mentioned in the video. But in addition to this, we're also celebrating this revitalized membership process in which 19 new members were added to the church and 18 baptisms since our last local church conference. Let's celebrate that. I love that. Thank you, God. Now, Splash Ministries is also exploding. I am telling you, if you've never been up there, you need to. And they're really recovering because COVID, really, we took a hit from that. Like so many, we lost volunteers, we lost children who were not coming to the ministry. We didn't really lose children, but people were not sending their kids to church, and so many were going online, and so that changed a lot. But we're so excited to say that right now we have about 200 children upstairs. While you're in here worshiping, there's about 200 children upstairs in Splash, and 95 consistent volunteers who come up there and help lead that ministry. Yes. Now, also in JCB, they talked about the growing number of adult volunteers that are helping over there. But there's also been just a real growth in people who want to come alongside young people. And this is, I know some of you can't believe it, but some people just love hanging out with junior high and high school kids, and they're growing in that. And so one of the members, Julie Wilmert, who she works in the peace and safety team. Now you're probably like, what's a peace and safety team? Well, let me tell you, if you try to walk in the doors at JC Body Shop, you're going to find someone who's wearing a very bright vest and reflective wear because they're going to ask you, why are you here? Because that's what they do. They are a peace and safety team who make sure that whoever is in the building is supposed to be in the building. But Julie talked about how her own spiritual growth has grown through just working with the children over at JCB. The cultivating team is also celebrating 2 new staff members. Delaney Odell, who she was our host pastor here today. She is assistant director with children and college age, and also our new youth pastor, Noah Shigley. Yes. And last but not least is our planting team. This is our all-church outreach and our children's outreach. The planting team is celebrating the partnerships that we not only have here locally, but around the world. Last year, our outreach department welcomed a new Grant County partner, the Grant County Rescue Mission. And also in this last year, one of our Grant County partners moved into the building over at JCB. The students at Kenwell Academy actually meet over at JCB from 8 to 4. They have school going on. And that has been a beautiful partnership because they have really benefited from being able to meet in that building, but we have benefited from Kenwell being over there. It has been a beautiful partnership. Whenever you hear that both partners really benefit, that is a true, strong partnership, and we are so thankful that they are with us. Yes. Just last month, the outreach committee met, and they agreed to give $40,000 to support all of our Grant County partners, not just here, but around the world. And these dollars will go toward empowering the leaders. I love that. Let's pour back into the leaders of each organization so that they could lead more effectively and efficiently through the areas of like, in their ministry areas of like team building and leadership development and spiritual growth. So we're excited to be able to pour into those leaders, into our partners here. Last fall, I was so excited. Wonder Space actually moved into our building full time. They became this was like they were gonna stay in the building. They kind of revamped the great room. And so every Tuesday morning and evening, I saw some of your grandkids and kids even there, they would come to Wonder Space and it started in November. So it went from November to about, we ended up I think we closed maybe a week ago because it's getting nice outside. Because what Wonder Space does is create a space for kids to play, but for parents to have conversations. Because if you're with the kids all day, you need an adult to talk to. Wonder Space provided this, and the community really met this with some excitement. I want to tell you how many. They had 2,554 people in and out of Wonder Space from November to May. They were averaging about 140 people per week. Here's what I think is so exciting. 840 new families learned about Wonder Space during this time and came for the first time through those doors. Isn't that great? That's exciting. I love that. And we're also celebrating our continued strong partnership with Francis Slocum Elementary. So many of you give, not just through mentoring, but you support the teachers, you come and pray. But the mentoring program continues to be so strong. We continue to have about 50 mentors per year, and that's at capacity for the small room that we have. And the teachers, we talk about the students, they can't wait till their mentor comes. That's true from the teachers as well. They're like, I can't wait for your mentor to come either. They love when their mentors come because those teachers a lot of times want to spend one-on-one time with their student, but they can't. But the mentor can, and they can meet those needs, those academic, those emotional and social needs. And the students benefit so much from that one-on-one time with their mentor. I had a conversation with Ken Zolman. He was telling me about talking with his little guy, Keegan. And he said to Kim, he goes, Kim, are you thinking about mentoring next year? And Kim was kind of like, well, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about maybe I would be your mentor again. How would that be? And Keegan, with a big smile, said, yes, next year and forever. So he was super excited that Kim was coming back. The planting team is also celebrating a new staff member. This is Greta Kiers, who works in our Immigrant Connections office, and we're so thankful for that. Church, together, let's say, to God be the glory, great things he has done. To God be the glory, great things he has done. Thank you, church.
To do in a meeting like this is to put the financials in front of you and then to put the budget in front of you so you get a chance to look at it. You should have a copy of it now. And so in a moment, we'll walk through that. Not me, but someone we have hired to do this. One of the beauties of being here as long as I've been here is you get to watch people kind of grow up within College Church, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're working at College Church. Patrick Riggs is one such person. Patrick has come through all of the training for this. He's a CPA and all of that stuff, but most of all, he's a member of College Church. He understands the finances. He loves and is loyal to College Church and is a good kind of guide to walk us through this. He's been wrestling with these reports and these numbers. Patrick, come up. This is your first time, buddy. Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, good.
Hi, thank you. I grabbed one of the packets to see what you see. The packet with the agenda, if you open it up, on the back of the agenda should be about a half-page numbers, and it should say balance sheet at the top. So we're going to look at the balance sheet first. There will be, after the balance sheet and income statement, there will be time for questions, but I just wanted to go over some of the highlights. On the balance sheet, near the bottom, if you look on the left column with the titles, it says CWC mortgage payables. That is what we still owe on our mortgage. You'll see that amount is about $1,413,000. Our loan is a balloon loan, which means after a set number of years, you pay it off all at once. So we will be refinancing this summer. And the board, in their last meeting, has decided to pay the loan down, use some of our savings. Yes. We decided to pay the loan down to $1 million. So we will continue making payments for a number of months, and then we will pay a lump sum and refinance for $1 million. And those monies will come from the building fund, which has about $40,000 in it. And as I understand, that is used each year to pay down the principal. So this year we'll just accredit that towards the paying it down to $1 million. And our surplus fund, which currently is sitting at about $318,000. Plus, we'll get to this next, spoiler alert, our current year surplus of about $250,000, which will go on top of that 318. So that's more than enough to get it down to $1 million, and that was a board decision to use up some of our funds that are just in our bank to lower our payment and continue to get that paid off. Under that, the JCB mortgage payable is at about $1.5 million. As of now, about 70% of pledges have been funded from the capital campaign a number of years ago. And we do expect 100% to be fulfilled by the end of the year. So as the pledges stand and as the money's been coming in, we feel confident that we can get to that 100% by the end of the year. Which would mean, a little note to tie it all together, between the College Wesleyan Church mortgage and the JCB mortgage, as it stands right now, that's about $2.9 million. And at this time next year, at next year's meeting, we can expect that to be under $1 million. So that is, yeah. I can open up questions about that. I guess I won't wait till the income statement as well. If anyone has any questions about the balance sheet, I can answer those. But, or I could do the income statement too, and if you have any questions about both, you can. But currently, it is financed through Regions, and I have met with WIF, Regions, Northwest, and VIA, who are all banks we already do business with. There was some discussion on whether to continue to look, but their rates have all about been in the same range, and we felt that 4 was enough, and now moving forward, we'll continue to have, now that just earlier this week, it was decided to go paying it down to $1 million. So I wasn't able to have any serious conversations about exact rates because we weren't sure if it would be about 1.35 or $1 million and how long we'd want to do it. So now that the board has discussed and decided those details, I will continue with those 4 institutions, say, okay, here's the time we want, the amount, what kind of rates are we talking now? But all 4 have already been I've been in contact with all of them, and I've just let them know. Eventually, after next week, we'll have this, and I think I have 2 more calls scheduled this upcoming week, and hopefully within the next month, we'll know which of the 4 we're going with, and we'll start that process. Anything else? If you now turn to the College Wesleyan Church income statement, that should be 5 columns of numbers and about the full page. The first thing I'll draw your attention to is the second column in is basically the revenue we've drawn in and the money we've spent this year. At the top it says actual year to date for 2023. It's not a true year-end report because the year is not ended yet. So that is the first point, is the year will end next Sunday. Next Sunday will be April 30th. That will be our year end. But I feel this is pretty accurate. There's a lot of the big expenses, like Vicki mentioned, the outreach is spending $40,000 to enable leaders and things like that. Those large expenses have already been calculated into this income statement. So I feel this is very accurate. So the first thing I'll draw your attention to is, again, our net surplus, thanks to good stewarding of resources and not spending where we don't need to spend this year. We have come out with a surplus of about $254,000. The exact surplus is $253,998.88. That's just, whoever's taking notes, I don't know if you need me to verbally say the exact number, But so that's a very good surplus. I think it definitely is about on par with the last couple years, but we're very happy about that. And again, the majority of that will go towards paying down the loan, which will still leave us with a surplus fund of around $240,000 or so. And that was used this year to upgrade some like tech items and things like that. So the surplus fund is used for various things. So we have a good surplus going into the balance sheet. Really, I guess so the personnel line, right under personnel, total personnel expense, that was one we saved a lot of money, again, just because staff has shifted. We are short a couple positions this year, just people who have left before the end of the year and the ones we have not filled yet. And that is, I think, probably the biggest difference between the budget year to date and the money spent year to date. We've also had a very good year in terms of revenue that's come in. We've tithed very well this year. We've received almost our budgeted tithing amount, which is very notable. I think it's a thing to praise. And the final note is just going into next year, we are hoping to fill those positions in certain ways. We're not sure what they will exactly look like, but we are just, as we move into next year, going to continue to steward expenses well, but we're hoping to up that personnel line a little bit as we hire replacements, at least in some form, for the people who we've lost this year. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions about the income statement, I can answer, or the balance sheet, or the financials. So this is the financials for 2022 through 2023. We'll go into the budget for next year next. Yes, Garth. Yes. Yeah, I didn't have a percent on there, but yes, we did spend. It was about 10% less. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We can. Yeah. So next year, the proposed budget increases the budget by 5%, and our goal in that is, one, the budget has not increased in a number of years. And you never know what's going to happen. Everything in the budget has been, there's not money that's just sitting in the budget and like, oh, in case we need it, we'll use it. We're grateful that our staff has stewarded it well and not spent money on things that are not, when you get down to it, not necessary for them to do their jobs, but we just don't know. We don't want to, and that's what we've been doing the last couple of years, is shifting monies around, saying, okay, instead of increasing it, let's do this. But if anyone would like to, the final page has the budget for next year, and it does, as Garth pointed out, has a 5% increase. But that 5% is almost completely encapsulated in personnel and utility increases. So that's sort of the reason, is we don't want to try and get down as tight as we can in case we happen to have a year that more expenses need to come out. And that 5% is all personnel. So one, there's been, before my time here, Jordan and Steve, and I'm not sure who else, I'm sure the LBA, the board conducted a study, and they were trying to find out how they wanted to make sure that we're paying our employees comparably and equitably compared to other churches. So a large portion of that, if you look at next year's budget, the personnel line goes up by 8.84%. And then the largest other issue we could sort of in discussion found were the utilities, whereas in general expenses have been below. We wanted to look at what expense lines are above. And utilities was one that we've just seen so much inflation in the last couple of years with gas and electric especially, that we wanted to build a budget that keeps that in mind. And again, not just shift money away from other facilities uses or other church uses, but if it's at a reasonable amount, which we felt 5% was, build in that increase to those facilities, just because we don't know if we'll see more inflation this year, but we've seen a lot the last couple of years, and we want to anticipate and be prepared in case it continues to go up. So I hear what I agree, but we want to sort of keep that 10%. We're happy about that 10%, and that 5% bump up is a very specific 5%, I guess I would say. Yeah, we're not just, our intention was to cover personnel increases, utility increases, as well as personnel pensions. That was something the board decided last year was clergy and ordained staff members already have a pension through the Wesleyan headquarters, I guess. Wesleyan Pension Fund, thank you. But non-clergy members like myself or facilities staff members didn't have any sort of retirement, so they that was another, that's something else built into that 5%, is there is a now 4% retirement account that every employee gets. Yeah. All right. Are there any other questions about the report? Okay. Does that need to be approved?
Let me jump up here a minute. No other questions regarding the report that's just presented? All right, then I need a motion from the floor that we accept it as presented. Nothing's been amended. Would that be made, please? Is there support? Thank you. All in favor say aye of receiving this report. All in favor say aye. Is any opposed to that? Thank you. Let's get into the budget.
Yeah, if you turn over to the last page, that should be the College Wesleyan Church. Well, this is a mistake on my part, actually. It should say 23-24 combined ministry budget, so apologies. But that's the page we're looking at. And yeah, if you look at the total income near the top and the total expense over in the percent change, those are both 5% change. So we shifted our budget to include a 5% increase. And then, yeah, just below that, the personnel line sees an 8.4% increase. The increase is around $115,000. And then the utilities increases by about 13%, an increase of around $17,000. So, again, between those two make up the majority of that 5%, and beyond that, it was just little things here and there. If ministries wanted specific things, either adding new members to their team as the tending and cultivating team shift a little bit, adding new reimbursement lines, but nothing beyond those two exceeded $500 to $1,000. Are there any other questions about the budget?
Are you sure? Okay, again, as I understand it, the big part of the 5% increase are things we cannot control. One is the utilities, another is the insurance. The third part is the salary adjustments that have been sort of baked into this, because when we did a comprehensive study comparing college church salaries with other churches, we were woefully inadequate in many cases. And so we're trying over the last year, and we'll continue slowly over the next year or two, to right-size those the salaries so we can compete in a market that is becoming more and more competitive. After you bake those three things into it, the 5% is pretty much all spoken for. There's not a lot left. So this comes to us by recommendation not only of finance and stewardship, but also by the church board. They present that to you. They were unanimous. So it just now requires, if there's no more questions, a vote of approval or nay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is any opposed? Well, thank you. Thank you, man. Yeah. Thank you. Good job. I want to answer some of the questions that you may have, actually, that come up. There's two big questions that have risen in the church over the last year. One of those, it started last gathering when my good brother Dennis Brinkman started raising questions about, well, who do we talk to about this or that? Well, he was right. We didn't really have anything. You should have that in front of you now. Do you? I don't have a copy of it. Perfect. We tried to create as many of these questions as we could onto one sheet. Who do I go to if I want to start a group, if I want to get one of the rooms or things of that sort? And we tried to send you to the right person. Our hope is that you'll take that home and put that on your refrigerator or somewhere on your desk. And when you have questions about that, then you just refer to that sheet and reach out to us. We don't want you to feel like you don't have enough communication. The second question was pertaining to how has the conference changed? You did not vote for trustees this year, as you normally do. Last year, in May of 22, the Wesleyan Church met for an annual, or for a general conference, which meets only every 4 years. We met in St. Louis. And one of the things we did was change the structure of the Wesleyan Church. And one of the ways we changed it was we put the trustees now appointed by the church board rather than elected from the congregation. The other change is that the nominating committee is also now appointed by the church board, and they meet, as I say, one time a year to nominate names for you to consider for elected officers here. In both cases, whether it's the trustees or whether it's the nominating committee, the board has been told, and they consistently now follow the advice or the recommendations that come from people within the congregation. This is not the board behind closed doors doing whatever they want to do. This is the trustees who currently run the buildings, meeting and themselves recommending names to the board for consideration. The board may, if they want to, adapt or not adapt any of those names, but they are so far very open to the recommendations that come from the trustees or that come from you. And the same thing is true for the nominating committee. So please, this generally comes up. This is not a shift in power from the people back to the elected few. We're trying to keep the system as open as possible. Any questions about those two things? Either who do I contact, or why aren't we voting for this or doing that? Are you sure? This is a good, yep. Honey? Of ministry. Related to women. I hear that a lot. Who would we contact? What's on the list? I don't have it in front of me. Can somebody give my wife directions? Who?
We're going to be Ethan, and then he would contact those that volunteer in the women's ministry. There's a group of women.
Tracy thinks that it would be Ethan. Yeah, no, I think she's right. Yeah, that would be probably the trigger. And then he would take it to the... Yes. Others? Yes, Allison?
Is there any kind of
it's a good question. Allison's asking, with the trustees, are we seeing a diversity in age, a diversity in gender, in ethnicity or culture? Right now, aside from having them all, there's one woman that is on the trustees. There is, generationally, there's a little bit of diversity. There is no ethnic diversity to my recollection right now. So we can certainly do better than that. When it comes time to appoint this, I'm taking this as a recommendation, right? Are you like saying, Steve, the next time you do this, right?
I just want to make sure it's part of the conversation.
Yeah, perfect.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, please, Abby. Abby is the woman, yeah.
I am the woman on the trustees, and it is an honor to be in that position. And I will say that actually, as the trustees, we have very intentional conversations about making sure that there are age differences and there are wisdom and experience differences. So we do talk about that as a group.
Other questions? Yeah.
This is great, but my mind would like to have a list of a list of the different departments, who's in those departments, and what those departments cover.
Oh, man, that was the other list? That's fascinating. Okay. That was how it was presented to me last week, right? And I said, no, they don't want to see this. They want to see this right here. And the lead team went, oh, okay. So they switched it. So we actually have the other list available, and we'll get that to you.
The one that says not either or, but both and?
Duly noted. All right. Yeah. This half of my brain, but this half of my brain. Okay. Will do. Yes. Do we have your email address? I assume we do. All right. If not, you'll leave it with us. Other questions?
Maybe I should know this, but are the board trustees and board of directors listed on the website? Like, do we know who was elected in the most recent election, like, in the board of directors?
No. Should they be? I guess so. We were just. Yeah. If that would help, if that could help, we will certainly do that. Others?
Could you announce who was elected to the board of trustees or the board, the LPA?
Yeah, that's where I'm going next. I just want to make sure the other questions are out of the way. Last call for questions. All right. Before I get into the announcements of the new board, and we have a slide for that, I first want to just remind you or tell you that we have sort of a policy here that we try to follow. When a board member has served 2 terms, a term is 3 years. When they have served 2 3-year terms, we recommend, don't insist, but highly recommend they step back from the board and take a short pause. That allows new names to come to the foreground. It allows more integration of youth and ideas into a board so we don't get too old. There are 4 people that will be stepping away from the board this year for such a pause. And those are Mark DeMichael, who is seated right over here, Tracy Steenberg, who is right here, Joe Wirt, who is back there wearing Notre Dame yellow, and Trent Daly, who is not in the room at the time. Those 4 will spend at least the next year stepping back before they will be considered for another term. Which means after you have voted, we have the following board members. We'll put their names on the screen. You can see that the new board consists of Jana Harden. I'm going to say these things and ask you to stand while I say them, please. Jana Harden, back here. Nancy Schoonmaker, Grace Miller, David Vardaman, Karen Hoffman, and Josh Needler. I saw you back there, Josh. Yep. And then there's members at large are Jeff Clark in the back, Heather Mazzellin over here, Levi, I saw you out here, Jeremy's right back here, Brenda is, of course, with her family this afternoon, and Logan Hoffman, and then Larissa. I saw you back there. Then in addition to that, the Board of Trustees are Joe Wirt, Dale Wansettler, Don Rowley. Don, are you? There he is. Mike Boswell, Abby Wilkinson, and Jason Ewer. Yes. Finally, there are delegates that we send to conference. One time a year, they do the business of the church on the district conference floor. Those names are Carol Bentz, Jan Bowen, which was right here, Wenda, do I see you? Might have been raptured. Lori Deneff, you were back there. Maria Kelly, Maddie Williams, and David Woods. David, of course, with Brenda at the funeral home. I'm going to ask all of you that were standing a moment ago to come down to the front, and I want to pray a prayer of consecration over you as we begin this year. Would you stand with me? You know how we do this? We hold out our hands if we can. Father, it is with grateful hearts that we come in prayer this afternoon, thanking you for the favor you have put on College Church. It is true that we have worked hard, but what we have done does not equal what we have. You have done so much more through us and with us, and sometimes despite us. And our hearts are full of gratitude. We cannot know from this point, Father, the questions that we have to resolve. We cannot know the decisions we have to make. They will present themselves. But what we ask for on behalf of this congregation is that that favor would rest on these people, and that they would feel and know themselves to be part of that story that is much larger than any of us. Give them wisdom. May the eyes of their heart be opened. And may they be able to discern good from best. Help them to walk with lives of integrity so that the community will follow because of our leaders. From the bottom of our heart, we are grateful, but we also are needy. And so we ask for you to settle again on our church and its leaders. In Jesus' great name. People of God said, amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for coming. Thank you for being here this afternoon, for staying as you did. This meeting's formally adjourned.